Hello and welcome or welcome back. Today we're going to make a gingerbread house jacket and it's going to be made out of tweed. Last year's one is here in the corner, and then further into the corner we have the poor mannequin still wrapped in Christmas tree looking tweed. But today we are going to focus on this tweed gingerbread jacket.
Perfect, 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 perfect. Perfect jacket.
Oh my gosh, I love gingerbread houses. They are the cutest. And I have this Linton Tweed that's sort of a caramel colour or gingerbread colour. And it's got the white and, well, it's got gold in it as well. But it just looks very gingerbreadish. And this is the back of it, which I actually like more. But if you know what tweeds are, then you know that that's the back. So, and the front of it looks more like a gingerbread house. So I think I will use the front of the gingerbread house. Oh, now I really, really want to have eat some cookies or something. Anyway, so I'm going to make a Chanel jacket, but it's going to look like a gingerbread house. Last year, I made one out of the fabric that you use to cover the bottom of your Christmas tree, and it's gorgeous, but it's not very practical. So I want to make one out of tweed this year. So let's do it. First of all, I have to make the structural layer. So I use net. It's like plastic with holes in it. It's not tulle, which is fluttery. Netting or net you can buy from the costume or cosplay section of a really big fabric store. It's quite cheap. It's only a few dollars per yard, but it's just really good as a structural layer. So I've cut out my structural layer. I've sewed the whole jacket laid out from one side to the other. So we've got front, center, front, side, side, back, center, back, and side back, and then it goes around to the side front and center front again. So I've put the two fronts together and I've sewed all three back panels together. So I've basically got the shell of the jacket. Now what I'm going to do is place these pieces on the tweed and pin them together. Then I'm going to hand stitch them together, and that way as I'm hand stitching it, I'll just move it a tiny bit each time, and I'll actually get them to I'll end up with the shell of the jacket and everything will stay in place perfectly. This only works if you've got a small bust. Obviously, if you've got a large size bust, then you can't sort of pull the tweed around your whole bust because it would be too much difference. What Chanel, well, actually, they don't usually make Chanel jackets for large busted people, but if they do, what they do is use the princess seams, but then put a pocket at the bust level to cover the pattern matching, so that the pattern matching matches at the shoulders and it matches at the bottom of the jacket, but in the bust where they have to sort of curve, then and there's a difference between the pattern, they just put a pocket over that. So that's what you do. Otherwise, the other thing that you do is a French jacket is traditionally an open front jacket. So you can just sort of ignore the fact that you have a bust. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you just make a jacket that only covers half your front, or 2/3 of your front. And yeah, that's generally the way that people get around it. But if you feel like you need a fitted full jacket that meets at the middle, then yeah, do the pocket trick. That's generally what is done with Chanel jackets. So anyway, I hand stitched them together. It took for ages. And then after I'd done the torso of the jacket, then I did the sleeves. And now I'm just stitching them together. The torso of the jacket, I only stitch together at the shoulders, but the sleeves, I sew them all together. And then I splay open the seam allowance and I hand stitch that down. So now here we are. I've hand stitched the shoulders on the torso and I've hand stitched the whole of the sleeves. So yeah, it takes forever. And then you very, very carefully turn them out. And I've also done the two inside front pieces of the lining, which are tweed, but we won't put them on yet. We have to do some reinforcing of the shoulders first. So you just splay open the whole of the torso of the jacket, and you put down 2 layers of the netting and hand stitch that into place, just straight rows across the front and the back, and then around the shoulders, and trim down the excess. And once that's done, then it's time to pin the sides together, and you also add those 2 front panels of the lining, and then machine stitch them in, and then hand stitch the seam allowance. So those are the side, I've hand stitched the seam allowance, and these are I've turned under the front lining panels. So this is what the torso of the jacket's like. And now that the 2 front panels of the lining are in, we can do the neckline. So the easiest way for me to do the neckline, because I make the whole of the outer jacket first, then I bead it, then I make the whole of the lining, and I sew the lining by hand. So I have to finish the neckline is what I'm saying. So what I do is I just machine sew this net fabric to the outer jacket, and once I've machine sewn it, I trim it down and clip the curve. Then I just push it back. It's kind of like putting facing on, if you want a dressmaking equivalent. And then once I pinned it into place, and then I hand stitched it. So the neckline is finished, which means I'm going to be able to bead the whole thing, and then I'll put the lining in. So this is done. All I have to do now is set the sleeves. So pin the sleeves in and stitch them in, and then hand stitch the seam allowance back. But I'm going to wait until daylight to do that because this lighting is so dodgy. But yeah, I'm also going to think about what sort of beading I'm going to do on this jacket. I kind of want to be able to wear it all year round, so I don't want it to be a Gingerbread House specific jacket, if you get what I mean. So I think I'll just do white beads on it, and maybe a little bit of gold, because you know how you get those tiny little gold balls that are edible? They're quite cute. So I think I might just use those sort of beads when I bead it. I do have a tiny amount of tweed left, so maybe I'll make a novelty like a gingerbread house or a gingerbread Christmas tree handbag with the tiny amount of tweed that I have left. I don't know. Let's get the jacket made first and then we'll see what we do after that. But a novelty handbag will be so much more fun than setting sleeves. Anyway, here we go. So I've got the torso and I've got the 2 sleeves. The back of your sleeve, or the back pieces, always have double notches, and the front pieces have single notches. That's how you can tell which is the back of the sleeve. But I also have slits at the cuffs of my sleeves. I get a lot of people, so then you just pin them in, pin the top center, bottom center, then the bottom 2/3 are match up, and the top third around the shoulder is just, you have to ease it in. And if you can't do it by hand and by sight, then you just hand stitch a row of a bit of strong thread, and then you pull it and then you sort of ease it in that way. So I pin them together, then I machine sewed them, and then once you've done that, this is a different jacket, obviously, but it helps you see what I mean. So the machine stitching is done, you clip the curves and you push the seam allowance back up into the jacket. It helps form a nice round shoulder. Then you pin the seam allowance in place and you hand stitch it from the outside. Once with the gingerbread jacket, I use gingerbread colored thread, obviously, and then you do it from the inside as well. Don't worry about how neat your stitches are. The outside, the stitches sort of nestle into the tweed, and on the inside you won't feel it because the silk is there. So now I'm once again thinking about what I'm going to do with the beading. So here's the finished jacket. And just over in the corner there is last year's jacket. If you haven't seen footage of it, here it is. I actually used the same out of print McCall's Chanel style jacket pattern for the bodice, and then I cropped it by 4 inches or 10 centimeters for the torso of the jacket. And then for the sleeves, I used there's a blouse, New Look N6698, and I used the puffy sleeves from them. I absolutely adore that blouse. It is so pretty. And then I used double layer of net, the stiff netting in the to make them sit out like that. And I've got the box pleats at the top. And yeah, I actually have some of these beads, the candy looking beads left over, and the glacé cherry looking ones as well, but I don't think I'll use them on this year's one. I absolutely love this one. Oh, the back is cinched in just because those sleeves are so massive, and I have such a slight frame that it just you would have been lost if it hadn't been so cropped and so cinched. You need to see that there's a human being underneath. But if you've got broad shoulders, it's not something, or even average shoulders, it's not something you need to worry about. But if you've got really slender, tiny shoulders, it is obviously, it's something that you always need to think about. I love like the brown, the caramel colored one, bugle beads are supposed to be, you know how people make straw bird's nests out of pulled melted sugar? It's supposed to look like that anyway. So yeah, there are some more of those candy shaped beads that I have, but I don't know. I think I'll save them for something else. And I do have a few cupcakes, but as I said earlier, I kind of want this one. I originally bought this tweed because it reminded me of a Chanel cruise collection. And so I think I'll just do gold and white, really sort of classic looking, I think. Oh, and I started to say before that sometimes people say my jackets look too corseted, like a corseted straitjacket or something. If you're just saying that all formal jackets look too uncomfortable for you, well, a well-made jacket should make you stand up straighter. That's a hallmark of a well-made jacket. Oh, I also have some gold sequins that I'm thinking of putting on here. So there's that. If you just don't feel comfortable wearing, the top button of your shirt up, of course, a Chanel style jacket made properly will make you feel uncomfortable because you're not used to it. But if you're saying you do know how a formal, well-made jacket should feel, and you feel like yours is a little bit tight, there are a couple of things you can do. If you make the neckline deeper, so instead of making it a normal seam allowance, do a double seam allowance, then because there's less fabric between your shoulders and your back, it allows your shoulder blades to move more and therefore your arms to move more. So I do a deeper neckline, and I also at the cuffs, I slit the cuffs. And if you've ever seen Anna Wintour in a fashion documentary being interviewed, you'll notice she often wears a Chanel suit, and the back of the cuffs are slit. And there's also a deeper than average neckline. So yeah, that's why it just allows you a bit more freedom of movement, and you're still wearing a really formal, really well-made jacket, but it's just more practical. Chanel she was quite prickly about rich people who don't do work. And so if you know much about French history, you'll know that the rich famously never wore pockets, so she forced them to have full pockets on their jackets, and she did all these things to her jackets. And if you know about French history and the wars between the elites who never work and the people who actually work for a living, her jackets are just this endless source of amusement. She was just such a spiteful person. I mean, it helped her survive in a very, very tumultuous time in history. So, I mean, more power to her. I could not have made any of the choices she ever did. But yeah, But if you want to make your jacket more wearable, deeper neckline and slits at the calf is my recommendation, but also it's what Anna Wintour does. Anyway, that's it for this video. There'll be a separate one on the beading. I mean, I am very tempted to use different colours, but I think we'll just go with the classic white and gold beading and maybe some of the caramel. Yeah. Oh, so much fun. I've put the double layer of netting on there so I can do lots of beads. I've got some gorgeous glass. I've also got these bubble ones. You know how gingerbread houses have those clear glass windows made out of sugar? Well, I've got these bubble beads that are clear glass and also some crystal cut clear beads. So, yeah. And obviously the orange thread just tells you where the hemline is, and I bead it, then I turn it up. So yeah, I'm so excited about the beading on this one. I can put so many beads on here, and because the structural layer is so sturdy, the sky's the limit. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm gonna have to buy myself so much gingerbread though. You know that Nordic gingerbread with the layer of white icing on the outside? Oh my gosh, I love those cookies. Yeah, I'm gonna have to buy myself a packet or two of those and then do this beading. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Happy sewing. Oh, and all the pictures of gingerbread are from Pinterest. Yum, so mouth-watering.